This tutorial will take you through how to download Bamboo Studio to set up your first 3D print file, which will be printed at the library at Confederation College in Makerspace RED. So first thing you want to do is download the software that we use to slice the 3D file, and that's to get it prepared for the machine to be able to read and print from. So depending on which operating system you're using, Windows or Mac, pick the appropriate one, download the software, and install. Once the software is done being installed, click Next. It'll ask you to associate the file types. And this is up to you, but I recommend that keeping it to the generic 3D file types is perfectly fine for this application. Hit Close, and it will by default open up the software. When the software launches for the first time, it will ask you to associate the different kinds of printers. The one we have in the library is Bamboo Lab A1. So you can hit Clear All and just pick this printer. Hit Next. For the material type, find it's better just to pick PLA and PETG. So under here, uncheck all and just pick PLA. We'll scroll down till we find PETG. And we'll hit Select All on this. We might not ever use all of these, but more options in this case is better than less. Hit Next. This is optional again, install the Bamboo Network plugin. You don't need this in order to connect to the printer, so you can uncheck this, but for my use case, I will be keeping it on. And you can create an account. If you haven't already, you can log in now. Now the software is ready to set up for your first file. Click Create New Project. Once the software is open, we can confirm that everything was set up correctly. This includes the Bamboo Lab A1, so the printer is there. The default texture plate and 0.4 is what we use here, so that's great. If you're unsure what kind of material that you're printing with, usually generic PLA is the default that we print with in here, so picking this out of the drop-down list is your best and safest call. So pick generic PLA. The color doesn't necessarily matter, but for right now, we're only printing in one color and we don't have multicolor available. For the quality, we have extra fine and standard. Usually standard is pretty good for most prints. If you're printing something that needs a lot of detail or you're concerned about it having a nice finish, you might want to go up here and pick more of the higher quality. Just keep in mind that this will take longer and therefore the cost of the print will go up a little bit as a result. To navigate around in the 3D space, on your mouse you can scroll in and out if you have that capability. You can also use the widget down here to look at the top or the front view, or underneath. And this will make more sense once we load in a 3D file into here. Let's minimize this for now, and we'll go find a 3D file. There's lots of places to find free 3D files, but some of our favorites are thingiverse.com, printables.com, and makerworld.com. You can also commission people to make 3D files for you. There's lots of avenues to also buy lower cost 3D files off of various different websites. So if you don't find it on one of these three, just consider also that there's multiple different ways to get 3D files that are either ready to go for 3D printing or with a couple tweaks could be ready to go for 3D printing. The one that we're going to use here is off of Thingiverse, and I already have a file picked out that I'd like to print. So do my search. I'm going to print this one, so I'm going to take a quick preview of the file here on this website, and I'm going to hit Download All Files, Save. In this case, this one comes in as a zipped file, so I'll have to unzip the file to get to the 3D file. So go to where the location was saved, right-click on the file and unzip it or extract. And under the files, you'll see the associated 3D file. The nice thing is too, you can see it's already associated with Bamboo Studio. It'll look like that green icon. If you double clicked on it, it will open automatically in Bamboo Studio. Back in the Bamboo software, let's load in that 3D file. So up here at the top, go to File, Import, and the first option here, so import the STL is what we're going to be looking for. Navigate to where the 3D file is saved and hit Open. So again, we can zoom in. We can rotate around the 3D object by holding the left mouse click and rotate. We can zoom in with the mouse wheel, or we can use the widget here at the bottom and look at it from the different orthographic views. If you'd like to resize the chair or make multiples or scale it in a different way, click on it so you have the bounding box. And up here you'll have a scale option. And here in millimeters we can change the scale. So right now its height is showing that it's almost at 51 millimeters. So if we wanted to scale it a little bit bigger, say if we wanted it to be at 90 millimeters, and it will scale proportionally, make it a bit bigger. Just keep in mind the size of the build plate and the print aspect. If it's too big for the print area, or if it's not in this black zone right here, such as if it was out here, it will obviously not be able to print. And it will give you a warning too at the last stage before we get to the exporting file. Another thing to note too is that where you have areas that there is an overhang like this, it's going to need some support to be able to print properly. So over here, I'm going to make sure this gets changed back to the right printer. So Bamboo Lab A1. Generic PLA is great. I'm going to set it to high quality, but under here under supports, you can even see it's highlighted in orange because it already knows that it's going to need supports to print properly. This might be turned off by default, but make sure that it is turned on. I also like to make sure that I include on build plate only if possible. I find that it's easier to break off the supports, but that's up to you. And then too as well, the different kinds of supports. So you have a tree, and then you have a bit more of a grid view. And we'll see what both of those look like in a moment. So in order to preview what this is going to look like and also see the stats of the print itself, how much grams and time it's going to take, we're going to hit slice print. And here we can see the supports that it built in. So this is the tree support. And up here we can see the total amount of grams, 26.23 grams. And it's going to take 2 hours and 57 minutes to print in total. If we wanted to reduce this time again, we can change down the quality setting to something like optimal. And we'll also just see what the other support looks like as well. I'll hit normal. Slice print again. Okay. So we can see it turned down the time a little bit. Now it's 2 hours and 14 minutes, but a little bit more in material use. So kind of a trade-off no matter what, whether it's different supports or time. There's obviously lots of other things we can do to change the file itself. Again, we can create multiples of the project on the same build plate if we wanted to. Here, if we wanted to say change the surface pattern, we've got options in here, some different kinds of patterns. If we wanted to have more plastic infilled overall to give it more structure, 15% is usually a safe default for most prints, but if you want it to be extremely structural, you might want to turn this up to something like 50%. And again, feel free to go through these options, although not needed for a very simple print. When you're happy with this, let's save the project. So go to File, Save Project As, and it's going to put it in that 3MF file. And we're going to also export the sliced version of this file, so the file that the 3D printer will need to read. So up here where we have print plate, there's a drop down. Click Export Plate Sliced File. And now it's going to make it in this .g-code file type. Hit save. Okay. Remember, keep this in mind, the 30.47 and 2 hours and 14 minutes. We're going to need that in a moment to calculate the cost. So if you can send an email to infodesk@confederationcollege.ca with the two files that we just created. And over on our calculator here, this is located at bit.ly/Makerspace RED with Makerspace all in caps. At the very bottom of the page, you will notice a 3D printing calculator. Where it says printer, this will eventually change to Bamboo A1, but for now pick Ender 3. We'll put in that print time. So the 2 hours and 14 minutes. And material, 30. And down here at the bottom, so this would be the amount that if we set up the file for you, versus this would be the amount that if you set us up the file yourself.